well, but I'm just talking about that moment when I saw that. I just thought, come on, mate, show a little bit of respect. That's disgraceful. You've won the fight. The guy's out cold. He's not moving. Yeah. It's not like, you know what I mean?
You don't know what state he's in.
You don't know what state he's in. Come on, mate. Like, there's eyeballs on this.
Welcome to episode 2 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan and Spencer Oliver. If you didn't see last week's show, you missed out. Make sure you go back and see it. But yet again, another eventful, busy, controversial, inspiring week of boxing. Mm-hmm. Claressa Shields, Savannah Marshall.
Yep, historic night.
Great event.
It really was. I mean, it was a big moment for not just women's boxing, but women's sport. It just shows you how it's evolved over the last few years. We would never have thought, if you'd have asked me this question 3 years ago, we've got a women's boxing event at the O2 with 20,000 people in it, I would have thought you was going slightly mad. But, you know, there was not a seat left in the place. People still trying to get in there. So it just shows how the appetite has changed for women's boxing.
Was good, wasn't it? It wasn't just the fact that we got a superstar in Claressa Shields, because I was a little bit of a naysayer. I thought, yes, she's a great fighter. I think that Savannah has the ability to beat her. When she comes in the way she did, I mean, it's Apollo Creed-esque, isn't it?
Oh, mate.
But when she came in, I said to Jim White, who was with me, I said, you got to believe this girl is as good as she thinks she is, because if she isn't, coming in a ring walk like this is going to be moderately embarrassing for her. But the point I was going to make is not about whether Claressa Shields, Savannah Marshall was a great feature event. It was the depth of the bill, the quality, you know, from Lauren Price, whether it was Michaela Meyer, all the way up to the feature bill. Yeah. And you've been to more fights than I have, but I've been very fortunate to have gone to fights going back as far as, say, Don Curry versus Lloyd Honeyghan.
Yeah, wow.
All the way up to recent fights with, you know, Tyson Fury and Dillian Whyte. There was a really interesting atmosphere in the stadium. It started off quite quiet, and then the moment it built towards Savannah Marshall and Claressa, it changed, the volume changed, the engagement changed. I actually felt that the audience participation was actually slightly better than some of the big male fights that I've seen. I
agree. I think the demographic was different. There was like sort of maybe 40% females in the crowd. There was a younger crowd as well. And I agree with you. I just thought the atmosphere was insane. I loved Claressa Shields' ring walk. When she done that, I was thinking the same. Right, I'm thinking, if this girl can't deliver, this is gonna be some serious egg on her face, because she was dancing with the dancers. I thought it was all new, it was all fresh, different. You know, I just thought that I thought that they brought something. If I'm honest, if I may say, I think it's slightly embarrassing for the men now in what's happened, as in what I'm saying is these girls delivered. 5 weeks ago, they went away, through the passing of Her Majesty. They went away, and if it was a male bill, it would have collapsed.
Do you think?
It would have collapsed. So there wouldn't have been. You wouldn't have had all those fighters. And like you say, the depth of the card was really good with Karis Arkenstall, like you say, Lauren Price, Shannon Ryan, and you just look through the depth and you just go like Michaela Meyer, Alicia Baumgardner, both from America, Claressa Shields, Savannah Marshall. You just think one of them would just drop out through politics or through egos, whatever. But they come back and they delivered, Simon, for me.
They did.
I thought that was something special.
They did. I kind of never like to be in the camp where we use an argument to disarm one other one, i.e. like men's boxing wouldn't do this and women's boxing would do that. And people were making a lot of observations at the fight. I spoke to Cougar Cassius, I spoke to Robert Smith and a bunch of other people, and they talked about the spectacle and how wonderful it was for women's boxing. And what I would like to do is just say what it was for boxing.
Yeah,
it was a
there
great
you go.
Boxing match, which happened to feature two very good female fighters. Going to the fight itself, I try to score it as much as I can from my educated, layman-esque, sort of student-like position. And I felt it was compelling that Claressa had won. Derek Chisora behind me was sort of saying that it was very difficult to give Savannah Marshall more than a round or two. Mm-hmm. How did you see the fight? Did you think she was dominant? Did you think that Savannah was in the fight at any particular time? Did she think that she gave Claressa as much trouble as Claressa could handle? Or did you think it was one-way traffic?
I thought that Savannah Marshall was in the fight from the first round to the last, but she was losing the rounds.
Did you think she was nervous? Because I thought...
without a doubt.
The first thing I thought when she came into the ring, and I want to ask you this as a fighter, she didn't want to look in Claressa Shields' direction. She walked around the ring. She came in with the England footballer Jill Scott.
Yeah.
She built up the momentum. The atmosphere was beginning to build, and obviously the audience were very much in Savannah's corner. And Claressa Shields, there was 19,000 people there. Claressa Shields had 18,999 against her. But I noticed her prowling around the ring. She didn't want to... I would like to have seen her looking across the ring like Tyson Fury did at Deontay Wilder going, it's coming for you, you're getting it next. Did you think... Am I away with the fairies?
No, you're totally right. What you had with these two girls is you had one that is a superstar. Claressa Shields come in. The ring walk alone was unbelievable. The aura she had, the energy that she was giving off when she got in the ring. And Savannah didn't have that. She come in and, like you say, she looked like a girl that... She looked like the challenger. Yeah. She looked like there was a little bit nervous, and, the whole atmosphere, the whole occasion. But she's got a history of that going back to 2010 where she's always struggled with confidence, etc.
She didn't start faster, did she?
No, she didn't.
Very ponderous.
Yeah, she did.
And she looked very laconic in the way that she was moving, in terms of she wasn't moving with any great smoothness. But is this the way that she fights as a matter of course?
Well, no, I think she's very relaxed. She looks to get into it, but Claressa Shields just showed her star quality. But I think that, like you say, to go back to the question that you asked me on how I saw it, I scored it 8 rounds to 2. 7, yes, 8 rounds to 2, maybe 7-3 if I'm being generous to Savannah. But that doesn't reflect on how good a fight it was, because Savannah was always in the rounds, but just falling short. And then that brings us on to the question, with this 2-minute rounds and where we're at, would it have been more beneficial for Savannah, which I believe it would have, had it been over a 3-minute round? Because I think that she was the one sort of pushing forward.
They both looked absolutely knackered.
Oh, they were. But that changes where the fight is. That's what happens in a man's fight, by the way. I've been in 2-minute rounds and 3-minute rounds, Simon, and that last minute is like, as the rounds wear on, that's where fights change dramatically.
Because that's what I was going to ask you, because one of the things I said to a couple of people on Saturday night is that the next evolution of women's boxers will start to hit more concussively, and they'll hit with more power. Because you don't see that many knockouts in women's boxing, do you? You see a lot more wins being achieved via different methodologies. I know that Savannah's got quite a comprehensive knockout record, but Claressa Shields doesn't. And she's the elite fighter. So if you go to 3-minute rounds, do you think you're likely to see more, I don't want to say compelling, but I guess it is compelling. If you get a knockout at a boxing fight, it's what you're there for, aren't you, ultimately? Well,
I think the last minute of every round, especially in fights that go like they're over the 10-round distance at the moment, I don't think they should ever go up to the 12-round distance. I think they've got it spot on with that. I think the big argument is 2 minutes or 3-minute rounds, and I think that had it been 3-minute rounds, I think the fight would change dramatically, because that last minute is just like, honestly, the 2-minute round, the 2 minutes are okay, and it gives the girls time to refresh, and that's why they're quite fast-paced. But I think that... But the big question you got to ask is it they're more of a chance that these women could get hurt more?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because they make this argument in tennis about women's playing 2 sets rather than 3 sets, and it becomes a pay argument. But I always think that it's actually an argument where you're playing against another woman, so the level of playing 2 sets, you should be able to play 3.
Yeah, sure.
So if you're competing against a man, there's no way you'd advocate for a woman being in a ring with a man, and certainly not going from 2 minutes to 3 minutes. But physically, women should have the capability to be able to box in 3 minutes, shouldn't they?
Yeah, definitely.
So with that in mind, you just change the regime and the expectation of a fighter. So do you think there's because I don't like the idea that the takeaway from that fight seems so often in society that what we want to do is focus on what we haven't got.
Yeah.
Right? So in this instance, rather than the takeaway being 19,000 fans, elite atmosphere, engaged audience, both men and women, women being in a ring because of women, not because of men, and not because of men supporting it.
Yeah.
But the takeaway was, we need to go to 3-minute rounds.
Yeah.
Is it a natural evolution? Does it make any difference, really?
Listen, I just think, look, would I like to see 3-minute rounds? Yeah, of course I would, because I just think that the women put on unbelievable spectacles. I think that they just go in there and they just and it is great. And it's like, if we look through, even going back beginning of lockdown, when we went through and we saw all the women's fights that were in the lockdown behind closed doors, etc., they were exceptional. And these girls delivered on Saturday night. Yes, I would like to see 3-minute rounds. I think it would be entertaining. But why are we always... I'm with you on this one, as in, why are we always looking at things and we're looking to point out, well, yeah, it should be 3-minute rounds. Just take it for what it was. That was a great night, a great spectacle.
It's also important in this day and age where a lot of people virtue signal and they say things that are popular and they want to jump on a bandwagon. I actually genuinely thought this was a compelling set of fights.
Yeah.
I thought Michaela Mayer was outstanding. We'll get onto that in a second.
Yeah.
I thought Claressa Shields was outstanding and Savannah Marshall was outstanding. I thought Lauren Price was outstanding. And they were genuinely outstanding because their boxing ability was at a high level.
Yeah.
Not because I'm some man looking at women's boxing going, I tell you what, it's politically popular to say women's sports on the up.
Yeah, sure.
I thought it was compelling boxing for compelling boxing reasons, wasn't it?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. You just watch it and you're just saying, watching it as a fight, as an event, as a spectacle, you just look at it and go, this is compelling. It is it's just entertainment, but the skill set is high as well. The skill set, the level is very, very high. You know, these girls are delivering, you know, not just with the offense, the defense.
Going to the event and going to the undercards in so much as an undisputed fight beneath the main events is an undercards. It wouldn't be boxing if there wasn't some controversy.
Yeah.
Michaela Mayer and Alicia Baumgarten.
Yeah.
Great fight. Mm-hmm. Travesty. I thought so, in terms of the outcome.
Yeah.
I thought Michaela Mayer won that fight.
Yeah.
I don't see how she didn't, besides the fact the judges scored it that way.
Yeah.
Your view?
I'm with you. I had Michaela Mayer.
She was choked, wasn't she?
She was choked. If there was anyone that deserved the victory there, it was Michaela. I had her winning by around maybe 2 rounds, I think it was. Something like that. I had her winning by 2 rounds. I think that Baumgartner started very well. Michaela just grinded it out, and she done what she does best.
Stylistically, she was good.
Stylistically, she was. But, you know, I think she was working well behind the jab. And I think I'm right with you again. There were some close rounds, but I think Michaela was winning them. And I think if there was only one victor there really for me was Michaela Mayer. And I think it was, you know, it was she could see herself and the corner, you know, they got an experienced corner as well. They were devastated. But a great fight again.
It wasn't undisputed. It was for belts.
But it was unified.
But you know, if ever there was a case, because there's an argument out there saying that Claressa Shields and Savannah Marshall have to fight again, get a rematch. And I understand that the rematch clause was based upon a controversial decision.
Yeah.
If there was, and I'm not sure that was a controversial decision. It wasn't. It was a unanimous decision. So it makes a rematch less likely in that case. But if ever there was a need for a rematch, it is Michaela Mayer's outcome, wasn't it?
Well, I think that the appetite would be so much bigger now, because of what the girls delivered. You know, it was a good fight, a tough fight, but it was very controversial, and so that you know, that leads you to that place where you go, yeah, I want to see the rematch. I want to see it. And now there was an argument. Mick Hennessy, who I spoke to actually, I spoke to Mick at ringside, and he says, Spence, you know, what did you think? And I went, I think we was robbed there. I said, no, Mick, you're emotionally involved in it. You're emotionally attached to it. She weren't robbed. I said, I had an 8-2, and he looked at me. I went, no, Mick, I'm telling you as a pal, mate, what I saw it. 8-2, maybe 7-3, but she didn't win the fight. I went, but it was an unbelievable fight. She was always in the rounds, but just losing them. So that was the argument. And he said, well, we're going to activate the rematch straight away. I went, I want to see it. I would like to see it.
I mean, Claressa Shields said herself there's no basis for it. But again, going back to the discussion of whether rematches are legitimate or not, you know, Alicia Baumgartner said absolutely not. I'm not giving her a rematch, and that's because there's bad blood between the two fighters. She's not giving her any credence. But I think there is a case for that particular fight. But either which way, women's boxing, even though I've said I don't want to categorize it as women's boxing, I just want to categorize it as boxing because good boxing is good boxing.
Yeah, sure.
Has set itself a blueprint now. Yeah. Has set itself a standard. And I think it's incumbent upon it to be able to continue that way, because if it's going to develop itself as a major mainstream, financially viable opportunity for fighters, because ultimately if you can be it, you can see it, right?
Yeah.
But if it's going to develop an opportunity for women to go into boxing, to see it as an opportunity to develop opportunities for their lives, for their financial position, that's the blue ribbon event so far, isn't it?
I agree, 100%. Yeah, I just think that, you know, as a spectacle, that was entertainment. They delivered. It was, you know, it was high class. It was very, very good.
It was.
Everything around it, you know.
Well done, Ben.
It was nice.
Well done all the promoters for putting this fight on, and well done the fighters for doing what they did. Tyson Fury, facing Derek Chisora. Derek's got his way, orchestrated a fight. Tyson needs an opponent. What do we make of this in terms of a fight that the public will want, a fight that the public should have? What kind of fight are we looking at here?
I think that Derek has built up a fan base. I think that people respect what he does. One thing you can guarantee with Derek Chisora, right, if we look at it, when you hear Derek Chisora's fighting, you think, right, we're going to get entertained.
You're going to get a war.
We're going to get a war. The geezer's going to bring it. So if you look at the options that Tyson Fury had and the opponents that he could have boxed or could have faced and the ones that are tied up at the moment or everything else, you go, you know what? I don't think it's a bad fight. If it goes at, you know, there's strong rumours circulating it's going to go at Tottenham Hotspur's football ground. If it does.
Is it, I mean, do you think it's a stadium fight?
Well,
is it a stadium fight because it's a legitimate fight, or is it just because Tyson Fury turns up now and gets stadiums?
I think it's a stadium fight because a couple of reasons, actually. Tyson Fury is because it could possibly be the last time we see Tyson Fury in a ring in England, on British soil. I think that, if he has this fight, he comes through against Derek. I think we get the Usyk fight. We may never see him. So I think it's a great opportunity to see the modern day era #1 heavyweight in a ring for maybe the final time. So that's one reason. Two, Derek Chisora, we know he's going to bring it. We don't think he's going to win the fight, but we know he's going to give it a go, and that's
but
you
do
can't
you think
ask
there's
more.
An appetite? I mean, do you think we can sell sand to the Arabs in this respect?
Well,
it's simply Tyson Fury fighting, so we're going to get a stadium full.
No, I tell you what we got to do with this, Simon, and I think the only way they're going to get a stadium full from it is having a really strong undercard. And that's how you sell the stadium fight. But you can't have one of those ones where you go like where we've seen Joshua and Fury, both boxing on separate events, but we see them as the headliner, and you look at the undercard and go, that is weak. We can't have that.
I mean, last week I spoke to Frank and said, no, Frank, come on, this is a pup. Yeah. This is feast and famine. We've gone from Anthony Joshua, there's a huge appetite for, to the famine that is Derek Chisora. And I don't mean this disrespectfully to Derek, because I admire him. I like him as a fella. I wish he'd pay his bet, but that's a different discussion.
Did you ask him about that on Saturday?
I did.
Then what was the answer?
His answer was, if I listened to you, Putz, I'd never be doing anything. I said, well, hang on a second. I'm the only person in the room at that time that said you should continue fighting.
Yeah.
Because everyone was talking about your health and your well-being. And I said, at that time, you have every right to fight and get paid. Now, moving on from that, Derek, I don't like this fight because I just think you're a tune-up. You're there.
Did you tell him that on Saturday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're there for Tyson to get warmed up so he can fight Alexander Usyk, and he's there to give you a pension. And I think that's not what I want to see, but I also think you perhaps earned that right. But looking at the fight itself, I suppose, for Tyson Fury's vantage point, because Frank was talking about the need to get him out, and I said, well, the only reason you need to get him out is because you've been mucking about for 7 months deciding whether he was going to fight or not. I'm in retirement, I'm not in retirement. If he'd have kept true to what he was going to do, which is not fight, then we wouldn't have this problem. If he wasn't going to do that, then he should have been able to be planning himself so we could have proper joined up fights, whether it was Frank Sanchez or Andy Ruiz, which would be more compelling.
Yeah.
But saying that, Derek Chisora was quite challenging for Alexander Usyk.
Yeah, he was.
So, given the fact that Derek always puts on a decent fight, whether he's fighting Joseph Parker or Dillian White, Tyson Fury's at a different level, isn't he?
Yeah, sure.
But Alexander Usyk's at a different level, and that was a proper fight.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's one of those. I just look at it and I look at the names below and the fights that are available at the moment, and I go, you know what? Fury, like you say, he's been retired 20 times in the last month, and then he's called out 20 names in the last month, and I look at the names that he's been calling out, like Manuel Char and people like that, and I go, there's no appetite there at all.
They couldn't sell that, could
Derek Chisora, actually stick a strong card on there, and it's good. And Derek, he always brings it. He puts it to say, give him the payday. Great. Give him the opportunity. Yeah. So only because of where we're at this, I think we're massively disappointed with this Tyson Fury fallout, etc. Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua fallout with the fight didn't get made. So we were all on a little bit low. And then Derek Chisora gets announced and everyone goes, what, we've gone from that to that? Well, listen, it is what it is. I think, I don't mind it.
Could it have been Joyce? Should it have been Joyce?
Well, I'm glad you asked that.
Both sides of the equation, from Joe's position and from Tyson's position.
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because I think that Tyson has sort of been quite vocal about saying, Joe, you need to earn your number and everything else. But that is actually the next best fight. I think that
he's a manager, isn't he?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, he's going. Yeah, but you need to, get your, build your followers up and all that sort of stuff. I'm going. Listen, mate.
He's a manager for WBO, though, isn't he?
Yeah, WBO.
Not
He's
WBC.
not WBC. But what I'm saying is, he's put himself in there as in the top 4 or 5 heavyweights in the world currently with that performance against Joe Parker.
So is it a fight that makes sense for either one of them at this stage? Because Joe Joyce is still raising through the levels.
Yeah.
Tyson Fury's got a lot of risk in the Joe Joyce fight,
massive,
knowing that the Alexander Usyk fight is March, right?
That's why.
He doesn't. He would like to be fighting. He would prefer to be fighting Alexander Usyk, wouldn't he? Right?
It's a high risk, low reward fight with Joe Joyce at this current stage, because Joe, like you say, hasn't maybe got the fan base, and he's on that building process. But he is 37. He needs to get a move on.
As a credibility exercise, if you wanted to say to the British public and the world viewing audience, a legitimate fight in terms of a top-ranked heavyweights coming in for a fight that doesn't just involve potentially getting paid, it would have been a compelling one, wouldn't it?
Joe Joyce was the one, yeah. That's probably the biggest name that I would have said that. And I think he would have been possibly available. And that's the name that if you want to see it as a compelling fight and the toughest fight out there for Fury at the time is Joe Joyce.
Where does Joe go from here, though? Joe doesn't. it was never really in consideration, so we can pontificate it and flap our gums about it, but it wasn't on the table.
Yeah.
But for Joe Joyce, what does the landscape look like? Where does he go now?
Great question.
Because I don't know where he goes.
Yeah,
maybe he fights Otto Wallen, doesn't he?
Yeah, but
or maybe he fights a Frank Sanchez, or maybe he fights an Andy Ruiz.
And he falls into that category, Simon, of he's the chairman of the who needs him, who wants him club, unless you have to have him, because he's just like a wrecking ball. And I mean, he proved there that he belongs in the top tier of heavyweights after that, after the way that
Or does he wait for Tyson Fury to fight Alexander Usyk? Someone gets all the belts. One of the belts gets splintered.
Yeah,
because it has to, because they can't make all the mandatory challenge the defenses.
Yeah,
and he picks up a title that way by fighting somebody for a vacant title.
That's another possibility. I think it really is. Or the person that's got all the belts at the time doesn't want to give up the WBO and gives him the shot at the undisputed. So look, he's got options, but I think he's just going to have to be patient. He's going to have a couple of warm up fights.
Joe.
Yeah, Joe, but before he gets the opportunity, I'm saying. Before he gets the opportunity.
We can't really pick names off the top of our head at this moment in time, because we're looking around thinking, who does he fight?
Yeah,
who
absolutely.
wants to fight him? Staying in the heavyweight division, because obviously there was the return of the Bronze Bomber on the weekend in a fight that I felt he'd walk through.
Yeah.
What was your take on A, his performance, but B, there was a very emotional press conference afterwards, which I can't work out with Deontay Wilder what I make of them, because you see him as this superstar, right? You see him as, I loved him when he used to come in and go, Bomb Squad, right? And I thought that was great, right? And then you see these ridiculous overweight outfits and the excuses behind it, and the allegations that Tyson Fury has put things in his gloves, and his seemingly inability to accept legitimate bona fide defeat. And I believe in all three fights with Fury.
Yeah.
But A, what do you make of the knockout? And B, as I said a moment ago, this emotional outburst in the press conference, what does that tell you?
One thing, so I'll start off with saying, one thing I will say about Deontay Wilder is, right, the Americans have always seen heavyweight boxing, their heavyweight champion, as the pinnacle of sport, right? They've always loved having the heavyweight champion, and we never had one for many, many, many years until you go back to Lennox Lewis. So they've always loved their boxing and their heavyweight champions. Deontay Wilder has never been...
They owned it for a while, didn't they?
Yeah, they owned it. Yeah. But he's never been a star in America. Like, the guy's not a star. And I can't work out why. You go, one, he's knocking everyone out. Two, he's got massive cojones, as he showed against Fury. Because if you look at those 3 fights against Fury, especially the last one, and he had Fury down numerous times, and then you look at the way that Fury dealt with, say, Dillian White, you just look at it and go, wow, it shows you levels.
But it didn't race him, did
shows you levels.
And if you look at previous American champions, whether that's Tyson, whether it's Larry Holmes, whether it's George Foreman, whether it's Muhammad Ali, whether it's Joe Frazier, there was always this belief that they were the best fighters in the divisions, weren't they? At the time, from whatever Ali brought to whatever, to the tragedy, it was Larry Holmes, who was actually a brilliant fighter, never got a lot of the credit. But I think a lot of people looked at Deontay Wilder, looked at his card and went, well, you're knocking people out.
Yeah, but you're not
no
knocking credibility,
out the top guys.
I get it. But yeah, so I thought, what did I take from Saturday night? I'll tell you what I took from Saturday night, that he showed that he's still established himself as one of the top heavyweights out there right now, the most dangerous heavyweight without a doubt. Because Robert Helenius, although I'm with you, we knew it was going to be, there was only going to be one victor, but I think it was all about what did Deontay Wilder have left? Has that trilogy taken a lot out of him? And I think what we found out there is Helenius is a durable guy, a guy that is awkward and hard to work out, Eastern European style, very strong. But he just went out there and dismantled him, mate. That left hook was like, it was...
And he came to fight, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
That's why he got pinged.
He did, and he got pinged. Anyone that comes to fight with Deontay Wilder, that is a possibility. And that puts him in there with anyone. He gives him an opportunity with anyone. I'm glad that he come back and showed that actually he's still got something left.
What about the heavyweight landscape now? We've now got AJ, where, I don't know, we've got Wilder back on the scene.
Yeah.
Can we see, God forbid, I don't want this, but can we see a Fury Wilder 4? Would there be any appetite for it? Is there any reason for it? Can we see Joshua fighting Wilder? I mean, what?
Do you know the fight I want? Do you know the fight I want?
Go ahead.
I want Joe Joyce versus Wilder. I want to see that. I want to see Joe Joyce versus Wilder. And I think it's a great fight. It could be a final eliminator for whatever, for the winner of the Undisputed, for the winner of, say, Fury versus Usyk, which is going to happen in sort of March time. So Fury's going to have this fight, have that fight, and then the winner of that, then we either get 4 or we get Joyce getting his opportunity. That's a great fight, actually.
I mean, the great thing about this show this week is that what we're actually talking about is fights that have gone on, fights that have had legitimacy to them, fights that have had credibility, and we haven't even touched upon Devin Haney and the brilliant performance he put out.
It was,
you know, we haven't talked about Khalid Plant and the unbelievable fight that he had against Durrell. But the bottom line is, we are talking about things that aren't about promoters and drug cheats and the sport being in disarray. We've spoken about brilliant women's boxing and a brilliant set of performances by, you know, the Deontay Wilders of the world. Whilst we're availing ourselves of everything heavyweight, one of my favourite things is looking back at generations gone past and looking at the best heavyweights of all time. But we'll do that in another show.
Sure.
The top 5 heavyweights as they sit now, who are they?
I'm going to go Tyson Fury. We've got to go Tyson Fury as number 1. That's without that. I think 1 and 2 is easy, actually. Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk.
You put Tyson in front of Alexander Usyk?
I put Tyson in front of Alexander at the moment, just because of his physical attributes, and actually he's got a great boxing IQ, and I just think that Tyson would be too big.
Beats Alexander Usyk as well, so by that definition.
Yeah, so I'm just going to go Tyson 1, Alexander Usyk 2, Deontay Wilder, throwing it out there, number 3, just because he's dangerous, explosive, and he proved that he's got a lot left. 4, AJ. And number 5.
It's got to be a juggernaut.
Juggernaut.
Got to put the juggernaut
in.
There'll come a point where Daniel Dubois will come again, and he'll be in the conversation. But I think that's, in my view, I think you're right. I mean, you can put Frank Sanchez in there. You can look at the rankings. You can say Andy Ruiz. But if you're looking at the most compelling 5 fighters, who's done what, when, how, in that's recent times, those are the top 5. Let's move on to the Q&A of the show. Questions and answers from us. Questions from the audience and answers from us. Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet. Have you ever met him? I have.
I've got a great story.
Briefly, but
I've got a great story. My meeting with Mike Tyson is probably not as good as yours, but it wasn't for me anyway. I grew up watching Mike Tyson, getting up. Remember the days when it weren't even on the telly? You had to get up. And I used to get up with my dad.
When he knocks out Carl, the True Williams, in 2 minutes.
And you listen to it on the radio, and you feel like you feel like you're there though. Like it's having that little magical moment. So that was my. But that was my experience of Mike Tyson growing up. Always wanted to meet the guy because for that short 2-year period, phenomenal, like the baddest man on the planet, incredible. So he's boxing Lou Savarese in Scotland. I worked on it for talkSPORT actually. He's boxing Lou Savarese in Scotland. I'm co-commentating with Steve Robinson. So we got there. It's in June sometime. I'm sure it was in June, and it was at Hampden Park, open air, and it was chucking it down. It was bucketing down, but it was cold as well. So we've got these poor girls holding umbrellas over me, Steve Robinson, and I forget who the main commentator was.
How tall were these
They didn't need to be very tall, did they? Anyway, but the taller one was standing over Steve. But anyway, that's another story. So so standing over there, and we're doing this. It goes out. Tyson comes out, doesn't he? He's had this drama with Frank Warren already. And he put this,
whacked him, didn't he?
Allegedly whacked him, which cost him a lot of money at the top floor of the Hilton. Which cost Tyson a lot of money.
Yeah, well, a lot of things.
Anyway, they go in there. Money, Tyson's clearly been taking medication to sort of to calm him, and he gets in there. He has this fight. He knocks Savarese out in the first round. Takes the referee John Coyle out as well, as with the hook. Do you remember?
I do.
So the referee goes down as well, and then Tyson does his interview and he's talking about Lennox Lewis and I want to eat his kids and rare, and they're thinking, wow, his nostrils are flaring. You're going, but I'm so I sit here. So as he's getting out the steps, it's like not as much further than where we are, and up there. And as he's getting out, everyone's going, Tyson. They're calling him that, and can't say the word he was using, but it was like beep, beep, and he was going, get out, and he was going mad and screaming. And I thought, oh mate, this is the one moment where I wanted to just go, because I was in touching this to go, Tyson, proud, wicked, what a performance! Great to have you here and boxing in England. And he walked past, and I'm like, Steve Robinson, keep your head down, mate. This could turn nasty. It was one of those. It looked like he hadn't finished fighting, and he was ready to take anyone out. So it was a disappointing meeting for me with Tyson, because I was with him the whole week, seeing him at press conference, but didn't get close enough to actually have the conversation with him. But he was very erratic and all over the place. But that's pretty Tyson.
Yeah,
anyway,
I remember that. I mean, I saw him fight 3 times live. I saw him fight Frank Bruno first time round in Las Vegas in 1989. And as he walked through the casino on the way out, he was very unpleasant. Yeah, most people around him.
Great way of putting it.
I saw him fight in Memphis, Tennessee, when he fought Lennox Lewis, and he was a shadow of himself. And I remember him walking into the ring and standing there with all the parade of security guards between himself and Lennox Lewis. And I think he gave a Black Power symbol. and then proceeded to come out and do very little in the fights.
Yeah.
And then I saw him in, I think, London, fight Julius Francis.
Manchester. Was it Manchester?
At the end, yeah. And of course, he was very feral then, but he also had dinner with a girlfriend of mine and a group of girls, and I won't tell you what he said, but it wasn't particularly pleasant about what he wanted to do to the particular person. But for me, I still think Mike Tyson, and that period of 86 to 90, before he lost his way, was just unbridled brutality.
I agree.
That's what heavyweight boxing is to me.
Yeah, well, that's what got me into boxing. I think that he was outside of just being that's what I say. That's when the heavyweight champion was known globally. Yeah. Everyone knew the heavyweight champ. Tyson, like even though we hadn't seen him, we was listening to it on the radio. And everyone was going mad.
23-inch neck or whatever it is. But moving on from Tyson's brutality to a fight that happened over the weekend, which was the return of Caleb Plant to the ring, and a pretty compelling outcome. But there was some controversy, and I think rightly so, because Caleb knocks out Anthony Durrell, knocks him out with an absolute beaut.
Yeah, left hook.
But there and afterwards taunts him. What did you make of that? For those who didn't see it, he did a grave digging exercise of basically the guy's spark out. I mean, Durrell was out, wasn't he? Out. And you don't know what kind of state he's in. No. But Caleb Plant is standing over the top of him, shoveling and digging as if he's burying him. Yeah. Now, you've been in very difficult situations in your life. As a boxer, what do you was what he was doing? What he was doing? Yeah. Have we all misinterpreted it in some way or another, or is it deeply unedifying what he did?
I think it's a disgrace. What he done. I think it's a disgrace.
Some
right?
punch though, by the way.
You know, you got to conduct yourself in a certain manner when you're in there. You know, and boxing is the ultimate gladiatorial sport where you gain that respect from the other man because you're sharing that moment that only you two have shared and only ever going to share. So there's a weird thing that you just gain this respect, win or lose. You just gain this respect for this one person and think, wow, this is like something like this is proper gladiatorial. So what he's done there when doing that and doing them, you know, like you say, shovel, you know, grave digging stuff. Yeah. I just think, where's your respect, mate? And I think I thought it was disgusting.
Was there history between these two that was bad blood?
Doesn't matter because
but I'm just asking because I mean, Caleb Plant was quite arrogant in the previous fights that he's had and went into the ring. But there's nothing wrong with that. Arrogant, confident, believe in yourself, whatever. You can describe it how you want to. But that seemed to be almost personal. Yeah, and I don't know. Was there any history between these two?
Listen, I don't. I think there's always a little bit of history between everyone that boxes some more than others, but nothing that was outstanding that I didn't really or I haven't seen before. And I just think there's a manner that you got to conduct yourself because of these young kids that are watching you and they're looking at you and they're going like, you know, you're their sort of like.
We got Deontay Wilder turning around and saying, "I want a body on my record."
Well, he was he does that. He's very controversial as well. But I'm just talking about that moment when I saw that. I just thought, come on, mate, show a little bit of respect. That's disgraceful. You've won the fight. The guy's out cold. He's not moving. Yeah. It's not like you know what I mean.
You don't know what state he's in.
You don't know what state he's in. Come on, mate. Like there's eyeballs on this. We're trying to, with all the controversy that we had like sort of last week with Conor, Benn, etc. So we're trying to show this as a good sport. We're trying to clean this sport up and show that you got young kids that are just watching you, and I just think it's important that we don't get that sort of. I'd like to use stronger words, but that sort of rubbish on there. So I was very, very it was a good fight. You know, it was competitive at times, and I think that really again just overshadowed what a great fight it was because he just made that the talking point as opposed to what a great victory he had and put himself right back in the mix in the super middleweight division. And I just think, mate, you just mugged yourself off there.
Do better, Caleb. Yeah, do better. Spence, Jacob wants to know what we make of the Misfits at the weekend. I haven't seen it. Have you seen it? What I gather is it's embarrassing and not particularly worth watching. But
listen,
tell me, show me.
I'm going to put you through probably about 30 seconds to a minute, and you won't get this. You're never going to get it back, but you've got to see it because I was embarrassed by it. And I'm up for all this entertainment world or whatever.
Who's involved in it?
Who's behind this? Claressa is actually involved.
You're having a good couple of weeks, Calla.
So take a look at this.
But this is taking things from the sublime to the ridiculous, isn't it? This is taking the opportunity to open up boxing to a different audience into a place where it has no credibility. It's nonsense.
Yeah, but so the audience, that, like you say, that are not boxing fans, they've come to see these influencers or whatever they are, but they're using boxing as the outlet, and I think that is embarrassing to the sport because, like you say, Simon, look at that. I mean, that style. I mean, these girls look like they've never ever walked into a gym in their lives. I mean, there's no foundations there at all.
I mean, I like Calla. But this is nonsense. I mean, I know that these guys are trying to open up different opportunities, different commercial revenue streams, and different ways of bringing boxing to a community. And if there's an audience for it, then I guess there's a space for it. But in the world of boxing, you look at that and go, it's just silly. It's rubbish. It doesn't bring any credibility to the sport. It doesn't add any value. It might add a few quid to the bank balances of those that put it on. But I don't think it does anything to particularly say, if you can see it, you can be it. If you're Claressa Shields and Savannah Marshall watching that, you're saying, not really.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know.
You think they're just going down the entertainment road as opposed to
but you can't
it's not boxing.
You can't shut things down because we don't like it. We can't shut things down because it doesn't meet your particular requirements. But what you can do is call it for what it is. This is not representative of boxing or significant boxing or serious boxing. And if there's an audience for it, good luck to them. We're not in that audience and don't want to be. And I think anyone that's got any real thinking about boxing will see that for what it is.
Yeah. I mean, look, I went to the KSI fight when he boxed twice on one night. We done it, actually. I think talkSPORT covered that. And we went there. And for the entertainment value, the crowd that was there, it was like a real concert stroke party sort of atmosphere. And the boxing was what it was. And if you take it for what it is, then fine. But I mean, this is like, at least KSI has got some sort of idea, and he makes some sort of shapes, as does Jake Paul and the rest of them. I mean, this is at another level.
But the tragedy of it is, in this world that we live in, if you think it's a tragedy, is that a YouTube audience wants to see a very different content sometimes. And it's not for us, not for me, to look at it and go, I'm going to censor that and say it shouldn't have a place or space. If I'm a credible boxing promoter, I wouldn't want to be too near this. I'd want to maintain. There's so much money in boxing. There's so much money in the top end of boxing, the middle end, and also a decent amount at the bottom end. You don't need to be here. You don't need to be in this space. And I know that Eddie talks about developing opportunities in different spaces, and probably Calla thinks the same thing. But this is the lowest common denominator, and I think it's a bit silly, really. But it looks like he's got a bleeding full auditorium. There's the tragedy of it. Right, that's it for episode 2 of Talk Boxing. Now, don't forget to keep liking and subscribing, but equally as importantly, leaving those brilliant questions in the comment section below. For myself and Spencer, see you next week.